I won't be able to repeat everything, but basically I'm explaining in this the last session that the mechanism of the patterns of that we are holding in general, and we started with the pattern of accusation, justification, and guilt. And just in a few words for whoever is catching up now, we are the fact that people around us are accusing us and that we have to justify ourselves. It shows that we are holding this vibration of accusation and guilt. According to the law of resonance, if you are holding the same vibrational frequency, if one starts to agitate himself, do whatever, you are going to react automatically. Okay, this is explained with much more detail in the last session. If someone comes, okay, with a frequency of accusation, whether it is justified or not, if you react to it, if you feel very strongly and you engage into justifying yourself and into explaining how it's unfair and how this and that, okay, like really profoundly, deeply disturbed by it, it means that you are holding the same frequency, the frequency of feeling accused, being judged, and being guilty. It's exactly the same frequency as the one who's doing this whole thing, accusing, you know. And so it means that you are playing on the same playground. The one who's accusing and the one who feels accused, the one who's reacting to the accusation, the one who engages in justification, constant justification. I'm not talking about normal explanation, because of course it's important for, you know, when there is a disagreement for both parts to explain themselves and make sure that everything is clear, okay? So now, what do we know about us? We know that we engage in justification constantly. We know that we suffer a lot from false accusation, okay? Or right accusation, doesn't matter, okay? We feel accused, we feel judged, and we engage in justification, but constant justification. And some of our actions, some of our behavior, they also moved by this need to justify ourselves. You can say, hey, but you know, it's not my fault if some people are evil and they decide to take, you know, the course of history in their own direction, which is, you know, the direction of evil or darkness or whatever. You could say that, okay? We are not saying now that you should remain indifferent, because it's human, but you want to act and not react. Understand? We are not telling you to not act, we tell you to not react. Because if you act from a balanced place. If you act from a wounded place. Well, I'm not saying that we don't have to act. I'm just saying that why are we reacting? To be in a game, you need to be with someone that wants to play with you. In general, people who find scapegoat, okay? How will they choose their scapegoat?
The weakest one.
Yes, but not only. For example, is it the guilty one that is going to be the scapegoat? Let's say now on the international scene, okay? Everyone is doing things that are, you know, questionable. Did you see the UN accusing Russia as many times? Okay, now everybody agreed that this is an invasion. Did you see the UN being so zealous to accuse Russia as they do with Israel? They defend themselves. Israel did not attack, they just defend themselves. Why?
Not at all, yeah, with Russia.
Why? Because Russia doesn't hold the frequency of guilt. They do what they think is good for them to do, and that's it. Okay. Now, I'm not saying we have to be like Russia. Russia has their own account and they are who they are, you know. I'm just saying that if you look on the international scene, how different nations are treated, you can see that not everyone is treated in the same way. Same, you go to a school, okay, you will see why some kids are picked on and when some are never picked on.
So I have a question. If if you're saying that the Jewish people hold a vibration of being victims, how do you explain that coming also along together with "B'chol dor v'dor kamim aleinu lechalotenu"? I'm saying that there's something in our destiny she'ad ha'geula b'chol dor v'dor kamim aleinu lechalotenu.
That's true. That's true.
So it's both that and holding the frequency of
Yes.
or we hold the frequency and then
Yeah.
kamim aleinu lechalotenu.
So that's a very good question. So I'm not saying now that those people think of coming to accuse us just because we are holding that frequency. They have their own agenda. Okay? Their own agenda is that they need to target us for reason XYZ. Okay? And how do we facilitate that for them? By holding on to that frequency. The frequency of guilt, accusation, being victim. Yes, Tal.
Isn't it also about power? So Russia have a lot of power. They have a seat on the Security Council. It limits how much they can be attacked. Israel is a nation that traditionally has not had power, and the nations are used to deciding for Israel what happens to them. You know, we haven't had power for a long time, and we still are a small country without power, with 23 nations automatically against us at the UN. So I'm questioning the guilt explanation versus a power explanation.
Okay. So I give you the example of another country, Bhutan. Okay. Bhutan is this tiny country next to China. It's a sovereign country. They do nothing like anyone else in the world. They do things their own way. They could have been invaded by China 1 million times, because China did that with many other countries. They were not. They are the example of sovereignty. The way, their frequency, this is a frequency of sovereignty. It's not a matter of how small you are or how resourceful you are. It's a matter of how sovereign you are. I give you another example. Take a lion in the savannah, okay? Is the lion the most powerful animal in the savannah? There are animals that are much more powerful than the lion. But the lion has that quality of sovereignty. And the lion spends his time sleeping all day long, even if he's alone. Now, no one can come and attack him. He's not afraid that someone can come and attack him. It's not. Why? Because no one would think of attacking him. Why? Because he's holding that frequency of sovereignty. Now, Israel has everything to be sovereign. There are countries that are very, very tiny, that are very new, and they are able to be sovereign. So it's not just a matter of power, of army, of what they depend on. Israel chose to accept to depend on America. They could do things differently. I'm not saying now that I'm going to come and give political advice. This is not my place. This is not my purpose. I'm saying that things could be actually done differently. There are different ways to imagine, and those ways they depend on how sovereign we decide to be. Because the way we won all those wars was supernatural. Normally, if we didn't have the divine help, we wouldn't exist at all. So we have the support. We just need to remember to embody the quality of our first foremother, which is the quality of sovereignty. This is the quality of our first foremother, Sarah Imenu. There might be some divine design that create the way the history is going now, okay? The fact that the Jewish people are a target because they're representing a divine project, and this divine project, there are people that are against it, etc., where I'm not questioning all of this. All of this is real and true, okay? Now, how do we handle ourselves knowing that? How do we handle ourselves? And in last week video, I spoke about the fact that when Yitzhak was born, Ishmael was not too happy about it. Okay? Because he thought that the promise of God will never be fulfilled. Abraham was already 99 something. It was very unlikely that that this promise would be fulfilled. And yes, it was fulfilled. When it happened, against all odds, we can understand that Ishmael somehow was disappointed. It's understandable. And as soon as Yitzhak was born, he was born guilty to exist. Because this is the way Ishmael was seeing him. He was seeing him as being guilty to exist. And so now Yitzhak has endorsed that guilt. Okay? Ishmael saw him as, why does he exist even this one? Why was he born? Okay? Now Yitzhak endorsed that guilt. It was imprinted, embedded in his subconscious, and he carried that. And I explained last week that we see that he carried that because we see that he was carried on in generation after generation. This same thing re-happened with his sons, Esav and Yaakov, and it re-happened between the clan of Rachel and the clan of Leah. Their descendants, they fought to get the legitimate right to exist. Who is the legitimate heir? And this first fight has been initiated by Ishmael towards Yitzhak. Yitzhak was younger. Esav and Yaakov, we see who's stealing the resources. Yaakov was accused to steal the resources, right? By Esav. And then we see that again in the next generations. So many of those patterns, we can see them already from the blueprint. Now, was it their fault? Not at all. It's not their fault. But of course, when something is there from the master program, of course, it takes huge amplitude when it comes down later on in the further and further generation. So now what we can do is that we can go back, okay? We can go back up and enter the collective brain, enter the collective Jewish soul, and do that shift over there. So the way we do shifts usually on individual level in quantum healing or in the protocol that I'm teaching usually, that is called the It Care protocol. The way that we do a shift is that we acknowledge a pattern, okay? We decide that we want to replace it, and then we choose what we want to replace it with. It's exactly as, because we are a field of information, okay? It appears as we are physical matter, but what we are really is that we are a field of information. So we are accessing this field of information. We're looking for the line of the code that is messed up, that is not serving us, that is not beneficial for us. We identify that line in the code, okay? and then we replace it by a different line, a different code that we feel is more beneficial for us. Okay? And how do we decide what's beneficial for us? We ask, what was the original plan? What was the original divine plan for the Jewish nation? How was it supposed to be? And we see that there were some bugs from the beginning. We see that from the beginning, Noah was supposed to have a fourth son, and the Jewish nation was supposed to come from the fourth son. It didn't happen because Ham castrated his father, and then the history had to take a different turn to get to the same result. But every time there is a distortion, there are a little bit more complication. Now we have to do with those complications. Doesn't mean that it's undoable. It just means that we have to be aware of what kind of distortion have been included in the master plan that were not the original plan. Okay? Now, after we so many, yes.
It's just so hard to believe that God's original plan didn't happen. You know, that there was a bug in something God created. I struggle with that.
Yes, it's a good question, but God also created, like in the original plan, it was also planned that we have free will. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that he gave to the force of darkness also free will. And now we are there, humans, we have the possibility to embody the force of darkness, to embody the force of light. And according to how many of us are embodying the force of light and how many of us choose to embody the force of darkness, history will take a turn that is upon us. So yes, there is a part that is the divine plan, but how this plan is going to go, it's also according to us. Okay, so now the fact that we are aware of this, it's we understand also why God can't interfere every time. Okay, that's the reason why God can't interfere. And sometimes even we need, because of this state of fact, when very great soul had to come on earth, God had to use some kind of tricks. So for example, we know that when a great soul comes to earth, the force of darkness come and say, hey, if you send this soul, the balance on earth will be shifted. I have no chances. If you send this one, forget about it. The game is rigged. We're done. Okay? And so because God respects that, okay, has to respect the rules that were established in the beginning, those souls sometimes have some difficulty to come. And that's why we say, for example, the soul of David HaMelech had to come from the source of Moab, that Moab was started from an incest, okay? And so they have to come through distorted way, and sometimes they are holding, the soul are holding the imprint of this distorted line, because that was the only way they could come in. That was the only way they were allowed to come in. There are many stories like that. See in the Talmud, it happened many times. We even know that the Adam HaRishon himself had to give 70 years of his life to allow David HaMelech to be incarnated exactly when it was required and needed. Why does he have to give 70 years? You know, God cannot just send David HaMelech. It's always the same thing. It's because there is in this dimension where duality was established as the rule of the game. You know, God does not decide to come now and just erase all the rules, but we can do that. We can do that because we have free will. Yes.
Salva, I also have a problem with that one, because if God gave the blueprint at the beginning, it sounds that right from the start, there was a strength more for the Sitra Acha, for the dark forces. So through time, that distortion, so got more and more, and if God is all powerful, the blueprint somehow could have gotten back to the blueprint. What I'm hearing is again and again justification to why this big soul couldn't fully come with all its light. I mean, this is over time. If God is all powerful, how come it led to, it's already out of balance where the dark is more than the light right from the beginning. It's what it sounds to me.
Why do you say that the dark is more than the light?
Because always there is this need to justify why the light beings cannot do their work. Why always from the beginning Ishmael was able to do this, Esav was able to do this, right from the start of the story, pretty much.
But Ishmael was able to do this, but Yitzhak also was able to do things, and Yaakov also was able to do things. They all did things the way they were able to do, and I think that Ishmael didn't have really bad intentions. When Ishmael was a little bit, jealous of the situation, I don't think he had bad intention, really. It was just, a matter of fact. It was a matter of fact. Ishmael was who he was, and he was not, at this point, he was not represented as a force of darkness at all, Ishmael. Ishmael was, Abraham counted a lot on him, and still counts a lot on him. So it's not force of darkness. It's just like in a family, In a family, we are sometimes some members of the family, take on more, some of the dynamic that is going on in the family. Some will take on more on this side, some will take more on that side. There is, at this point, I don't see really like, later on, we see that Lavan really come with a bad intention. It's written in the Agadah, Lavan ratza la'akor et hakol. When he gave Leah instead of Rachel, he had a malicious intention. But from the beginning, Ishmael and Yitzhak, I don't think there was any malicious intention. But even Esav and Yaakov, they had this dynamic between themselves. I don't think it was coming from a malicious place. It was, whoever they were, and they had this interaction between themselves. Now, how do you manage those interactions, and what do you decide to take on? That's the thing. What do you decide to take on? And sometime, because of some situation, we take over responsibility for some events that are happening, or we start feeling guilty of something that is not really of our responsibility. And I think that somehow this is maybe what could have happened with Yitzhak, is that he took on that imprint on him, even though there was no malicious intention there. And the imprint was, maybe I'm guilty to exist. Exact same way that a child that comes to a mother that is too young, for example, a mother that will have a child too early, too young, and the child is coming and the mother is overwhelmed and doesn't have the capacity to handle that child might hold the sensation that he's guilty to exist. Maybe he should have been born much later, maybe he shouldn't have been born. So sometimes, and maybe the mother is not even realize that the child is holding that inner guilt, and maybe she would be devastated to know that. Maybe she will be very sorry, But still, this child is holding that inner sensation that he did something wrong. Maybe if he wouldn't be here, the mother would be free to go. So it's not it's just imprints that we might carry within us that don't necessarily come from the battle between the force of darkness and light. So this is what we're exploring in general. And so this sensation, this imprint of guilt, it's something that we can easily actually shift. And why? Because it's not, it's coming from something that was not even justified. So now, how do we do a shift on individual level in general? So I was speaking and explaining how we access, because we are a field of information, we are accessing a line in the code, identifying the line that is not beneficial for us, that is not properly written, and we can rewrite it. This is the responsibility that we are holding as individuals and as collective, on how we decide to see things and how we decide to engage with, with life or with the different, actors that we can meet in our life. And that's something we can do. And so the protocol to do that first is to realize what we are doing, like even in the Torah, what is when we say that someone needs to bring a korban, you need to regret something that was done, okay, and want to shift, this whole situation. What does he do? First of all, the first step is charata. Is like, oh, I realize that I do something that is not the most aligned. And first of all, I recognize, okay? And then you have to say what you're recognizing, okay? That's the process of vidui, okay? And then the third step is, what do you think you're going to do from now on to replace that habit? What do you want to replace that with? Okay, so this is how we do a shift in general, is I recognize that I'm holding this pattern and I'm choosing to replace it, okay? And second step is what I'm replacing it with. So now you guys are representative of the collective of the Jewish nation here, and I'm asking this council today, what do you think we should replace this habit with, or this inner sensation that we are holding with? Because now we are going to access the collective brain and rewrite something. What do you think we should write?
I would say sovereignty after everything you said, and it's also a feeling I would really, really like to replace guilt with.
I love that. But is sovereignty the exact opposite of guilt?
No, it's not the exact opposite.
So I love that we are entering sovereignty. We have to. But we also need to replace with things that are the opposite vibration of accusation. I'm feeling accused. What is the opposite of I'm feeling accused?
To be innocent.
Innocent, okay. But do you feel innocent?
No.
So
by the very moment, I went to that world, I think I lost it.
So it's very important to make a shift. Maybe we are not going to be able to make the shift today. Maybe we are going to think all about this week and do the shift next week. Because we can't do a shift if we don't feel aligned with that shift. There is no point. It's not going to happen. So if you want to replace feeling accused and guilt and you don't feel innocent, it's not going to happen. Why do you feel guilty?
Do you mean as a Jew or our own personal issues? Do we have to clear them all?
Yes, we have to do it all, because you cannot come and shift that for the collective if yourself you are holding that frequency. We have done that for 2 months with the members, the student of ITCAR Module 1. And so they are a little bit more advanced in that, and Gina and Sarah and Mordechai. And so they understand what we are speaking about. But yes, we are not going, of course, to redo this whole training. But yes, in order to be able to come as a efficient actor to shift for the collective, yourself, you have to work on that. So if you feel in general in your life that you have to justify yourself, that you're spending energy justifying yourself, it means that you're holding it.
I feel that it's probably you feel disempowered when you feel guilty that you don't have a right to exist. It's because in your history you felt disempowered.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we can add that in the code like disempowerment. Okay, so we want to feel empowered, okay?
So what you need is to feel empowered.
Okay, but that's the result.
Yeah, but at the moment you feel disempowered.
Okay, so that's a very good point, actually. That's a very, very good point. Why? Because when you're holding the frequency of accusation, yourself, okay, if yourself you are accusing, whether it is that you're accusing yourself, you're accusing others, or you're accusing God, okay? The moment you are accusing, you give away your power, okay? Because if you're accusing this guy or that one or this event or whatever to be responsible for something that happened in your life, you give the power to that person or that event to be in charge, in control of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the moment you do that, straight away you're disempowering yourself.
Correct.
So it all comes back to, do I want to be responsible for my life now? As individual and as collective. Because when we are in the, the clan of the one who are accused, we are somehow, whether you want to see it as we are the victims, or in any case, you are not in charge of your life.
But going back to guilt, if I'm trying to...
But accusation and guilt is the same thing.
Yeah, it's, it's really, I have the feeling it's something I was born with. And it goes back to hundreds of generation. Like,
it's what we are talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And if I have vision which comes, because I work a lot with vision, I immediately have the Shoah which comes, which comes to me. It's also my family background, but it's really weird because I feel guilty and I have the image of the Shoah of innocent people who were leading to death, who were led to death. So there is a kind of a contradiction. Why do I have this image which comes immediately to me?
Okay, that you are victim, that you are guilty?
That I'm guilty, but I have the image of the victims in front of me.
Okay. So you're guilty of what?
This is the question. We are guilty for the whole humanity, but guilty of what? This is really the book of Kafka. We are accused, but we don't know of what.
Yeah, tell me.
Can I say something? In IFS, internal family systems, they talk about how when someone is a victim of abuse, in that moment of abuse, they often take on some of the energy of the abuser as a defense mechanism. It's the only way. There was a part of them that realized that at that time they need to take on some of that person's energy and use it to defend them in a way. So it's what makes sense that we take on a little bit of the accusations. We absorb it a little bit. We feel guilty about it as some kind of defense. So we're the victim, but we also feel, at some level, we feel like they're right.
This is exactly what we were speaking with Yitzhak. Yitzhak, what was he guilty of? It was just being born. The day he was born, he was already guilty for Ishmael. And you can see that this revendication that, I'm the legitimate one, you're not the legitimate one. We see that he carried on, because today when you read the Quran, for example, everything that happened to Yitzhak, they say it happened to Ishmael. They replace the story completely. There is an usurpation of identity. Still, how did I go back to Yitzhak? Because you see today, usurpation of identity. Okay, go back. This legitimacy was revindicated at the beginning. Yes.
In order for him to feel guilty, he must have felt empathy first to understand Ishmael's feelings, and then to really understand how he felt. So
absolutely. And so that's why he felt guilty, because he felt empathy in the first place. If he didn't have
Mhm.
empathy, he wouldn't feel guilty.
Mm.
Does Ishmael feel guilty? No. Does Esau feel guilty? No. The one who has empathy is the one who feels guilty.
This is one
And
of our midot, and it says in Pirkei Avot that Yisrael Rachmanim.
But that's the strength and that's the weakness. And that's why we have to be very careful how balanced this quality is. Because if it's not balanced, then we are losing it completely. Because we are going to lose ourselves. We are going to give our place. For the other one doesn't feel bad. So the other one doesn't feel whatever he feels like. Now, the other one doesn't take responsibility for his feelings and actions, right? But we have to feel responsible for him. You know?
But why
So,
do we have to feel responsible for him?
because we are imbalanced in our quality of rahmanut, of empathy and compassion.
Can I say something? It's a bit difficult to say, but I don't know. It's important to me. It's something that I see. This imbalance of Rahmanut is in two ways. It's one is that we accept the blame. We too imbalanced on that side. We accept the blame, and then I see on the other side a lack of Rahmanut where there should be Rahmanut in a way.
Absolutely.
I think
Absolutely.
that a lot of people in Israel, they can't see the suffering of the Palestinian people in the victims and the innocent victims. They might say it, but very few people feel it on a real compassionate, empathic level. So it's in my experience, in my opinion. So, you know, I think that we're imbalanced on both ways. Mikatzel, katzel. In one place, not enough empathy, and the other side, too much empathy.
I think
You know?
that in this specific case with the Palestinian people, it's because many of them wanted to believe so much and gave so much empathy for so long, and they realized that it was not, it was taken as weakness. They realized, and in this specific case, they needed, in between saving their own family or saving their neighbors, there is an unfortunate choice to be made. So this situation in particular is very delicate, but you could absolutely, I absolutely agree with you within our own people that sometimes you can see a lack of rahmanut, a lack of compassion within the Jewish, the Israeli society themselves. Yes, because the moment the balance is lost, then it's like the compass is like, is like completely, is not stable. So it goes here, it goes here, it goes here. And yes, there is that was the role of Sarah. That's why the quality of sovereignty is so very important, because Sarah was the one who knew how to put boundaries and limits to the chesed of Abraham. And God told Abraham, everything that your wife Sarah will tell you, tishma bekola. Why? Because she had that quality of sovereignty. So she knew exactly when to exert Rahmanut, Chesed, and when to exert Gvura, which is the ability to put proper boundaries. Because if you don't have proper boundaries, what do you do? What do you do? You give your place away completely. Now, when you give your place away completely, are you doing any good to the world? No, because the place that you were supposed to occupy, the part of divinity that you were supposed to embody, is going to do it for you in your place. No one. And that's what Amalek come. That's where Amalek come and try to make you doubt of your place. who do you think you are? And do you think it's right what you do? And do you think, you should maybe have more compassion and empathy? And maybe you're actually guilty of this and that.
What's coming to me now while you're speaking is that I think that the victim also creates us to justify not only our behavior of being Jewish, but it's projected onto other religions where we try and justify them much more than justify ourselves. I find that we'll be so much more respectful of other religions around us, or minority religions, so on, and be I don't know, I find that very much when I travel abroad, that Jews or Israelis are in awe and love anything that has to do with other religions and justifying it. But when it comes to our religion, they have a very hard time doing that.
A vibe of Rajasthan in our circle. You have a vibe of Rajasthan, a vibe of South Africa. She just gave us the picture, she doesn't want to give us the vibe. A vibe of Paris, Australia, Israel. Okay. So how is this connected? I don't understand the link with what we are saying.
Because being a victim, instead of standing up for ourselves, I find that sometimes we stand up for other religions.
No, I want to say that I totally understand what Sarah is saying, because I see that all the time.
Yeah, the guilt of existing, the guilt of being born, the guilt of existing as a Jewish nation, the guilt of existing as an individual. If this is what's written in the master code, master program, we can't start nothing. We can't start doing nothing. We can't start embodying our purpose. Because in the first place, we don't agree with the legitimacy of this life and of this purpose. So how can we embody it? That's a problem. So that's why I invited all of the forefather and foremother here with us, because we really need the quality of Sarah Imenu with us right now. And we are going to see all the other one, but Sarah, she's like a masterpiece.
It's so hard to stand up against all the many Jewish people and the articles that we read that are saying exactly what you're saying, that we just hand over our sovereignty to others and to believe that we're wrong and always looking to see what we've done wrong. And it's all everywhere. It's in all the news, the articles that people are writing about Israel, and just not justifying our cause at all.
Yeah, but it will continue. It will continue as long as we will pay attention to this. As long as
we buy into it.
Yes, as long as it will hurt us, it will continue. And they don't have to stop, they like playing. We also play with them. We are playing also. We are in the same game. They are not, we are as guilty as them to play that game. So when we disengage from that, because we shift our belief that we are guilty to exist, we shift our belief that we are guilty to have been given that purpose as a collective, that as a nation, then we can start talking. But before that,
I wanted to say something. I think also in our culture, there is something that is offset. It's the notion of Mashiach, of the Savior. Notion of Mashiach, how we live it now, is we live it from a place of a victimhood. We're waiting for someone to come and save us as a people. Really, the Mashiach is I don't know, I mean, the period, the time of the Mashiach, we have to embody our power. Nothing external. If we embody our real qualities as a people, we will be able to do the shift that we are waiting for.
Absolutely. But this perception of seeing the Mashiach as the savior, it's a Christianic perception. It's not a Jewish perception.
Yeah, I know.
Because the Jewish perception is there is a Mashiach available to be revealed in every generation. And if the generation is awakening, it gives the power to the Mashiach to come and stand up and fulfill its role. If the generation is not awakening, then it's not happening. Unless you wait for the end of the time and the end of the cycle, when there is no other option, and then it will come anyway. But we do have, when we say that we need to wait for Mashiach now. Now, I understand that in the word wait, there is a notion of passivity. That's yes. But on the other hand, we are enjoined to do everything we can to actually facilitate the empowerment of Mashiach. So Mashiach is actually just like, and we say Mashiach is the Messiah. For those who listen later on who will not understand. And so there is this concept very in Judaism, is that we, the generation, we need to empower the Mashiach. We need to give the Mashiach the power to come. If we don't do it, the Mashiach cannot actually reveal himself. In every generation, there is a Mashiach that passes away.
But we give the power to something that is external. So it's
not really external. We give a power to something that is it will be the representant of the collective work that we would have done.
No, but I agree with that. But from the culture, I mean, the as you said, the Christianic way of saying is like, if there is a savior, it means that we need to be saved. There is something to be saved. So we put ourselves in in a victim position.
It's true.
It's actually it's like a guide, or we have the word is not actually the proper word.
Actually, I don't know where is this word save mentioned. When you say save, you mean like it's like in the collective consciousness they use the word save?
Yeah.
Because in the text there is no mention of the word saving anywhere, like in the Talmudic text. There is mention of waiting. Yes.
Okay.
And this is subject to interpretation. It could be subject to a wrong interpretation, maybe to a passive attitude. But on another hand, we also receive many injunctions to do what's necessary to allow it to come. But yes, we can definitely see how the victimhood, the mentality of the victim mentality, it's also the result of, what happened in all history. It happened. The pogroms happened and the Shoah happened and all of those things happened. And they are not just because we are guilty people and we are, so we bring this upon us. Absolutely not. This is not what I'm saying. I'm saying that beyond the history itself, that is unfolding as it's unfolding because of things that are way beyond us. The things that we can take responsibility for is how we are megivim, lehagiv, how you say lehagiv in
reacting,
English.
responding.
How we are responding. How we are responding to whatever is happening. That's something we can do. Voilà. I still invite you to watch, the last session. And I think that we are going to close on this because it's worth actually really thinking about it and giving, the thoughts necessary before we actually do the shift, even if the meditation is ready. But it's really worth it to actually give more thought about it. And yes, there is a program of hiding that we also have. It's also one of the patterns that we are holding, hiding, that we have to hide. So that's also a shift that we need to do. And please remind me, Milena, in case I forget, that we have to shift that as well. We're going to discover a lot, huh? That's for sure. We're going to remember a lot of patterns. Okay, so I think we can close the circle now. We close without closing, okay? Because we of course we need the support of the Avot and Imaot for this process, and this process is still ongoing even in between the sessions because things are going to happen to you. And you know what? Something amazing happened in my other groups, you know, the mentorship program that is ongoing, is that I noticed that people that are in the group, even if they are missing some sessions or they go travel, or they are actually, or even sometimes I do a session in Europe and the US group is not happening at the same time. What's happening is that all the people that are included in their circle, whether they are present or not, whether they know that what we do or not, they are all engaged in the same process that we are doing. I had some people calling me to tell me this happened, this and this happened. I said, but this is what we're working on this week, you know? She said, I didn't even open the platform. I don't know what you're working on. I know. And you know, it happens so many, many times. And so the guys, the moment you're in the circle, the guys, they are on your case, guys. They're on your case. You're going to be, even though those who are not in this circle, but are in the circle of Leslie or other circles that are going to watch these videos in other circle later on, they are all included in this circle. And so they are all in the same process, in all the same circle of souls. And by the way, I salute all the people in Australia who are gathering by the amazing initiative of Leslie. I'm greeting you all, and I'm very happy to hear about this amazing initiative. And you are all, of course, welcome in our mind, in our hearts, in this circle, and all supported as well in this process. And all of you later on who are going to join later on and watching this later on as well, you're all included. And so, Bezrat Hashem, that we might receive the exact inspiration that is required to do more of this work efficiently, right? And with the blessing of our forefathers and foremothers, and of course the blessing of Hashem Yitbarach. I wish you all an amazing Shabbat wherever you are. Sending you love and light from Bali, and Bezrat Hashem, see you next week. Okay?
Thank you so
Shabbat
much.
shalom. Toda rabba.
Shabbat shalom. Thank you so
Shalom.
much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.